all of this stuff about him not getting on the board, multiple published reports said it was Tiger, Jordan, and Cantlay that blocked him from getting on. Right. And Rory's done a very nice job of being diplomatic about it and going, all's good. Nobody's mad at anybody, blah, blah, blah. But Rory has conceded, maybe Tiger and I have a slightly different image of what history of, or what the future of golf should be, which that is not clearly defined what that means, because we haven't heard definitively from Tiger. What is your vision of what the future of golf should be? How does it differ, for example? We have heard from Rory that he believes that there should essentially be a world tour, which means more top-tier golf on a global basis, not just U.S.-centric. Right? We've heard that from him. So I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. So you've got the American stars that don't want to travel as much. Is that it? Is that what it's about? I've heard some people speculate that it's about how the players that went to LIV and in this new, combined world, how do you bring them back without the, what some people feel should be an obligatory punishment? Which still doesn't, I have to tell you, still doesn't make sense to me. We had Peter Malnati, who's a member of the board, on just the other day, and I said, have you not benefited, as a tour player, have you not benefited from what LIV did? Oh, yeah, definitely. 100%, definitely. There was no hesitation. Do you have it, Dom? Do you have that clip? Dom's gonna try to find that clip so we can remind you of what Peter said the other day. And so from that standpoint, I look at it and go, okay, if you are readily admitting that you benefited from the actions of another and then you somehow want to send a message to the other, I mean, what is a punishment? A punishment is to deter action. Dom, do me a favor. Dom, look up the definition of punishment. Right? Look up the definition of punishment. Is this it? Is this the clip you got queued up now, Andrew? Let this thing roll. Can an argument been made that signature events, increased purses, et cetera, hasn't you as a PGA Tour player and others benefited from the existence of LIV?
No question. No question right now. The question is, have we done this in a way that is sustainable, and can we continue to give the players, the product of the PGA Tour, the stars of the PGA Tour, I point to myself, meaning the stars, like the other players like me who are better than me, can we continue to give them what they want and feel they deserve, while also carrying on the brand of the PGA Tour in a way that is positively impacting, all the constituents around us?
It's interesting when you play the clips from Peter, because remember when I was talking about the future of the game, and he called it an existential threat, which of course I picked up on because that's my job. Do you have that one? Let's play that one too.
We don't necessarily have a clear path forward in terms of what the model looks like. Are we partnering with the PIF? Are we not partnering with the PIF? Like, we don't have clarity around that yet. And I don't think there's like a risk of us losing, there's not a risk of us losing men's professional golf as something that is, incredibly entertaining for fans around the world, and incredibly, powerful to do good. I just want to make sure we keep that as part of the PGA Tour's mission, and keep the PGA Tour as the premier ultimate place for, professional golfers to apply their trade.
That's good. I mean, from that standpoint, that should be what they're aspiring to do. That's their job, to aspire to that. But the idea of, this blanket of, no, they have to be punished. Why? Because they took the money and they profited from it and you didn't? Dom, did you look up the definition of punishment for me?
I did. Would you like me to read it?
What is it? Yeah.
the infliction or imposition of a penalty as retribution for an offense.
For an offense. Okay, retribution for an offense.
Yes.
What surprises me about that definition, I don't know where you found it, it doesn't say anything about justice. Because punishment is usually the administration of justice.
Well,
meaning in some way you have broken some kind of rule.
So there are different definitions. This next one I'm going to read you is from the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Where was the first one from? A guy on the corner?
No, the first one was from the Oxford dictionary.
Yeah, it was a little weak. Go ahead. What's the next one?
Okay. You don't like the definition of the definition of a word?
I didn't like it. It didn't incorporate justice. It
Dominic,
wasn't about
what's the definition of that word? It says to punish. No, that's stupid. It's the wrong definition. Okay, here's another. This is Merriam-Webster. The act of punishing, suffering pain or loss that serves as retribution, a penalty inflicted on an offender through judicial procedure.
Judicial justice. Thank you very much, Miriam. Finally, there's some sense of balance.
Finally, a definition that's a real definition.
A real definition instead of this other one. But what I'm saying is that when you hear those definitions of punishment, it speaks to someone did something definitively wrong. And in this case, that wrong led to massive changes. Massive changes. Changes that players have benefited from on the PGA Tour by their own admission. So that's the part. Dom, you tell me what the people are saying. That's the part that I don't get. And I'm asking you guys, what am I missing here? How do you at one point go, I could not have benefited from the changes that have been made with massive purses, signature events, et cetera, $1.5 billion up to $3 billion invested, all of these things. I'm not talking about how it impacts the fans and saying, yeah, you got a diluted product, the ratings are down, you got the best players playing in 2 different leagues. Okay, I get that, but they're trying to rectify whatever that means. And how is that the fault? It to me, it's almost like you've got a person that left a job to get paid more at another job. So now they're not working with the people that they work with. So the dream team is no longer together. And then the owners get together and go, nah, let's merge these 2 companies back together again. And the people that stayed at the old job that didn't get the higher pay and the signing bonus go, no, I don't want that person back in. They should be punished because they went to the other place. Like, wait a minute, you're getting a much higher pay because of the. What am I missing, Dom? What do you? Is anybody commenting? I really would like someone to go.
There's a lot of
stuff
coming in. There's a lot of stuff coming in, but I want to ask a very simple question before I read some of these. Are professional golfers under any obligation to make decisions that are in the best interest of the future of the sport? Or is every professional golfer's job to just have those horse blinders on and be like, this is my job, this is what I'm doing, I'm looking out for my family, looking out for myself, I want money, I want this? Or and I'm not talking about LIV or PGA Tour, I'm saying in general, if you turn professional and you're a golfer, do you have an obligation to does the future of the sport have any role in your decision making, or should it?
100% yes.
Okay. Interesting.
The last time we interviewed Mr. Palmer, which ended up being his last long-form interview, the last question that I asked Mr. Palmer, in which I said, Mr. Palmer, years and years from now, how do you want the world to remember Arnold Palmer? And do you remember what he said? Andrew, I see Andrew's scrambling over in his director's room. He's working on it. I can hear Dom going, can we find that? All right, here you go. I guess I found it. Years and years from now, Mr. Palmer, what do you want the legacy of Arnold Palmer to be?
Well, I suppose just that I have made a contribution to the game to help make it a little better.
There you go. So, yes.
I think that question is central to this discussion. Now, let me read some of the stuff coming in. There's some people talking about Rory and majors and Valhalla and whatnot. My question of the day, by the way, is who will win the PGA Championship? Brooks, Rory, Scotty, right? Collection, and we'll go over the odds later. Or the field. You taking those three guys, remember, all three of them are coming off wins. What? By the way, what? That's crazy. I think that's amazing. All right. Let's see. They signed and made their choice. LIV players aren't going to come back. Not going to happen. Get over it.
Get over what?
That was Jay Christopher saying that.
No, but what's I want to understand. Explain to me what does that mean? What is there to get over? If they want to stay. If they want to come back and play in the tour, come back and play in the tour. What's the get over? That's what I'm not figuring out. What's the right?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that means.
I'm just reading what's coming in. I can't.
All right, good choice.
There's not paragraphs of context with each comment.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, it's like, as my understanding was, John Rahm, for example, was one of those who said, "I wish that I could play in the events that I love to play in, the events that I miss playing in." Right? He's the one that said it. It's not. I don't know anyone else that's saying. Oh, maybe what that's referring to, Dom, is like, the game at large or the television networks or somebody saying, no, the ratings are down, so we need all these stars to be back together again. That wasn't the context that I was using. I was talking about what they want.
Well, I think Rory's argument, at least as portrayed through the media, has been that the sport of golf is not a large sport, and that
Correct.
if they remain separate, it's less likely to be successful as a sport in general. Like, it needs to be together in order for there to be success for all parties. I think that's the argument. All right.
Makes sense.
Not partnering with PIF no matter what Peter Maldani says. It's going to be interesting.
They don't think a
Jay.
deal's going to come together. All right.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how many LIV players re-sign when their contracts are up this year.
Right. That is happening.
That is true. I remember, again, some of these guys are talking to each other. As long as the tour wants it that way, LIV will keep going and the tour will keep being hard-headed. That is true. I do think part of the issue, Matt, is that both parties are like, I'm right. Instead of like trying to find common ground. It's almost like watching your kids fight when they're 5 and 7, right? They're fighting over a truck. They're like, it's my truck. They're like, no, it's my truck. Okay, well, let's see if we can get to a compromise. No, it's mine.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that
It's a little bit childish.
Right, but the playing field there has you when you go back through the pages of time when again I'm not trying to tell you, I'm giving you an exact quote, so take it as a paraphrase. When Jay Monahan said, if the weapons of this is money, then we can't compete. And then all of a sudden there's the June 6th announcement, which caused, huge reaction in the sport, right? That they're going to come together. And when they were coming together, it was talking to the Public Investment Fund and Yasser on, I think it was CNBC, if I remember correctly. And you had a party in PIF that had massive sums of money and ready to commit. And you had the PGA Tour, which had a really solid product, but didn't have anywhere near the resources. And now you've got the PGA Tour, where it seems to me that the posture has shifted when the $1.5 billion came in, upwards to $3 billion, right? Where the tour is in, and maybe this is the fundamental to the difference whole thing, where the tour is in a position now where they're like, no, we're not, our hat isn't in our hand. We're trying to put together a deal that's the best deal. So, okay. So what is it? Because you just heard from Peter Malnati, who's on the board, saying they don't know. They don't know what the future of the game is going to look like, which is in some ways a little frightening I almost wish, and Peter's not the type to mislead. That's not what he was trying to do. Believe me, we know him very, very well. And the conversation continued for a long time after we went off the air. That Peter wouldn't be the type to say, nah, I don't really know. And then all of a sudden, this Wednesday, they announce a new agreement. That's not him. That's not the type of guy that he is. We know plenty of other players that would do that to us. Be like, yeah, geez, I don't know. We're trying to figure it out. And then all of a sudden there'd be a big press conference, a day later. I don't believe that's what's going on. What else you got, Dom? Go ahead. I'm listening.
Michael writes, I got to be honest, I'm not watching much men's professional golf these days. I'm burnt out on the whole PGA Tour LIV debacle, and I only really care about majors at this point. I just want this whole divide to get sorted out already. What did the LIV players do wrong? I mean, let's be honest, MBT3 writes. What did they do? All the players play for money. The endorsement money was falling off, so players took a different type of endorsement.
Well, they didn't do it because
Don
endorsement
needs a
money
British
was falling
accent
off,
when he reads from the dictionary.
Yeah, that's. I don't blame them for taking the money, but the money they took was so dwarfed endorsement dollars. It wasn't like hey, this stream is starting to run dry, so we're going to look elsewhere for where we're going to fish. They got offered huge sums, and in many cases life-changing sums, and in many cases from people that I know that went early on. Frankly, it was money that they needed for their lifestyle. They were running out. Time and place, kind of an age of a player, what have you, but they needed it. And so, I again, from the standpoint, I always ask the same question. It became, when the machine kicked in, it was framed as a moral question. Now the same individuals that clung to their sword and fought against these winds, whether you think there were dark winds of change or whether you think it was a fresh air. Now all of a sudden they're saying, no, this is the best for everybody, which again tells me that this isn't only about individual desires. That's a shift in the machine. Right? There were other factors at play that are influence. Individual opinions who were ardently against it on moral grounds, although they conveniently ignored any argument that would be made to go, wait a minute, there's moral contradictions to the position. Ensuring that these golfers that went or have made a decision to go or are contemplating going are somehow the moral sentries at the gate, or deserve to be, when all of these other moral quandaries that you could find with the same individuals in big corporations, in government contracts, in relations, in the fuel in your car, all these other areas, those are all with a wave of the hand given higher status because of some geopolitical benefit that they provide that outweighed, apparently, the moral discussion. I mean, the fact that literally their oil division is the name that sponsors multiple women's golf tournaments, but oddly, nobody complained about that. Why? Because the means justify the ends in that case, but not in the others? Which makes one wonder, and again, I'm not judging you based on your opinion. If you're morally outraged, be morally outraged. That's up to you. As I've said a million times, the weird society we live in today is that whatever particular opinion people craft in their own mind and slam out in their keyboard through social media with either thumbs or all fingers, somehow you think that you represent a groundswell. Right? I always get a kick out of it on social media when people don't say, this is my opinion. They say we. I always get a kick out of that. I'm always like, we? Who are you representing? The we. It's usually followed by we golfers. It's usually them saying, we golfers don't want this or we golfers don't want that. We. Okay. Whatever. So all I'm saying is that this situation is very strange, and it got much stranger over the last few days because there, as I'm saying to you, something shifted, something changed. The machine started to change rhythm, and so too has the message started to alter. So it brings me back to the same question, which is Dom's giving us some answers to. If you benefited from the actions of another, and then at the same time, that person whose actions you benefited from directly, admittedly, as we just proved to you, and you go, oh, yeah, I definitely am better off than I was, thanks to that person. And they say, oh, that's great. So what do you think should happen to that person? Oh, they should be punished. What? Go ahead, Dom. What else you got?
Oh, there's plenty more. We could do this all day. Caleb writes, they left one company for another company, but one of the benefits from the company they don't work for any longer. D2 Wave 2 writes, golf cannot support the money being paid to players right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, and I don't want to answer this question for you, but in the case of the LIV Tour, I think it can support it because they don't really have the amount of money they have coming in through oil is sort of it's endless, is it not?
Yeah. But that's not. I
don't
think
need a
that's
return on the
again.
money.
It's context, right? Because we get these messages, context. The ROI doesn't make sense. If you looked at it on a spreadsheet and said, okay, this is what we have to spend to get it started, X amount of billions. In 6 months from now and in 18 months from now, we have to spend X amount of billions more to keep the people. We don't have a major television contract. We're not bringing in, that we know of, major advertising or partnership or event sponsorship or however you want to define it, revenue. In other words, they're not bringing in as much or more than what they're putting out, right? But we've also been told by Casey Alexander and other experts that they have it's their philosophy that they take a long-term perspective. So their ROI pro forma may be based upon a 5-year minimum, but more likely a 10, 20, or 30-year return, right? The people who are involved in getting paid huge amounts of money right now, their teams are going, hey, they're getting paid for the stars that they are. They're getting paid just like they would be in any other sport. And then you look at it and go, but is there enough money to support that? Here's that clip from Casey. Let's hear what he had to say.
Normally, and I've heard this characterized as a private equity investment, I think that only has to do with structure in this particular instance. All right. The folks that are behind SSG, I mean, come on, we're talking about owner of the Mets, owner of the Red Sox, owner of major sports teams. The typical private equity time horizon is 3 to 5, maybe 7 years looking for a payback on your investment. Not these folks. These are not the typical private equity investors. These are folks that intend to hold on to this for a long time and hopefully create generational wealth out of this investment in the PGA Tour. That is similar to the point of view of PIF. I have found it interesting that it's been characterized several times that PIF is spending money with no intent for any economic return. That's just a misunderstanding of time horizons here, okay? The PIF invests in terms of decades and generations, not a 3 to 5 year time horizon similar to private equity. And investments for decades and generations can take a very long view. And in this case, a fund of this size can burn $1 billion or $2 billion here, looking towards a return where 10 years, 15 years, 25 years from now, it's generating $1 to $2 to $3 billion per year in additional income for them as a part of their potential investment in the game. And I would also point out that it's extremely likely that there's still going to be an investment from the PIF fund because the level of compensation is still not even between the two parties involved here. And until PIF is involved in the PGA Tour, which would provide them the motivation to level out these avenues of income that have been created, that's when you're going to eventually be able to create a fully integrated global golf tour. And the great thing about it is it'll have black hats, it'll have white hats, it'll have Hatfields and McCoys. And what golf has always asked for year in and year out is great rivalries. And the way that this is working out, it is likely to create really interesting rivalries. And television and the media will eventually grasp onto that, because that's what television and the media does. It writes great stories, and it knows how to do that.
Okay, Casey Alexander explaining that. What else you got, Dom? Let's keep going. It's good.
If PIF and this is Denver. If PIF and the PGA merge, could LIV tournaments merge into PGA Tour events? Certainly. I think that's one of 1,000 possible options, right?
Could you repeat that, Dom? Because you broke up a little bit. I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry. If PIF and the PGA Tour merge,
Yeah.
could LIV tournaments merge into PGA Tour tournaments? I think that's one of 1,000 options, right?
Yeah, I mean, if two tournaments are being held in the same weekend right now, then they could be held in the same weekend going down the road. But yes, that's just logistics. But yeah, they could figure that out. What else you got?
If LIV never happened, what would the ratings be right now? It's a fair point. I think even Peter admitted to earlier in the clip we played. Well, no, even he admitted, like, this has changed things. This changed things.
No, it's changed things because of what's taken place, because of the dilution of the field. So it's impacted the ratings. And you've also got people who are tired of all the drama and all of the egos and all of the politics and everything else that goes into it. So if this past weekend, when it started out as a heavyweight battle between Xander and Rory, it was compelling. What happens if you had John Rahm and Brooks Koepka or DJ in that mix at this event? Right? We all hope we're going to get that in this week that lies ahead of us, which is why, through all this conversation, what's gotten better? The majors have gotten better, right? Because the majors have these other players coming back and playing against Rory McIlroys. And then we hear from Mike Wan, just like last week when we had him on here, which you think would have caused a lot more attention, although it did cause it. A lot of people made note of it, but not as many as you think would have, where he said, yeah, if it's not figured out, we'll definitely find pathways, which I thought was incredibly significant. What else?
Wayne writes, what's really funny is, a little bit on what you just said there, what's really funny is many of the guys will see each other on the range this week and this weekend, and they're going to have no issues. We, meaning you and me and the media, we are creating the issues, not the players. Although I'm not 100% sure that that is entirely accurate, because haven't we heard multiple players say, yeah, I'm still friendly with this person, but like we're not really hanging out anymore?
No. We haven't heard multiple players. It's been the opposite of that. They've been more like, I mean, we heard at the Masters, you heard John Rahm saying, yeah, it's some guys give me sideways glances. Again, I'm paraphrasing. But you had the likes of Rory McIlroy going, yeah, Brooks and I still play golf together all the time down in South Florida. And more often than not, Jack Nicklaus, I just saw a clip from him saying it recently. He's like, I don't blame any of the guys who went. And that's almost universally the message amongst the players, not the pundits. The players almost universally go, yeah, I don't have a problem. They make a decision. If the players are hardcore in the line that they draw, they go, but you make a decision, you live with your decision. That's it. You made the decision. Good luck to you. Off you go. So there is this divide, philosophical divide, if they should be allowed to come back and play in these various events. Now, one question I haven't heard asked, which would be interesting to me, because everyone looks at it from the perspective of a LIV player coming back and playing in a tour event. How about having an honest conversation and asking the honest question of, hey, by the way, how would you like to be able to tee it up in an event with a very limited field, 54 holes, and you're playing for $4 million? How many tour players would go, yeah, yeah, I'd like a little piece of that.